Welcome to a virtual tour celebrating Black history at the High Museum of Art. Today, we will celebrate the Black, African, and African American art and artists that are featured in the museum. We will do this by looking at the various messages these artists are telling the world through their art. We'll focus on artist intent or what an artist is trying to say through their work. In this tour, we're going to start over 10,000 years ago. Let's get started. This smooth stone tool was found in the country of Niger and is dated over 10,000 years ago, during the Neolithic or Paleolithic era, long before the pyramids in Egypt were built. It's about 2 feet tall, in the shape of a long oval, and is being held up by a brace. It's smaller at the bottom and flat at the top. If you look very closely, you can see a small indent towards the bottom that is in the shape of a thumbprint. The High Museum is still doing research on how old this stone is, but we're pretty sure it came from the Sahara Desert, located in Central and North Africa. Thousands of years ago, the Sahara Desert was not a desert, but was actually covered in grass and used for agriculture. We believe this stone was a tool for farming. The thumbprint indent shows us this. Researchers believe people use one end of the tool as a handle, where the thumb goes, and the other end as a shovel, or for some other agricultural purpose. This tool shows us that people in Africa have been inventing and engaging in agriculture for thousands of years, before anyone else. Africa is truly the birthplace of civilization. Let's fast forward in time to about 1955. The United States of America was in the middle of the Civil Rights Movement. African Americans still were treated unfairly and did not have equal rights. Let's meet one artist who created work in response to this. Born in 1915, Elizabeth Catlett was a sculptor and graphic artist who thought deeply about racial injustice. For the sculpture called Target, she created a portrait bust of a man. What do you notice about this sculpture? Knowing that the title is Target, that this was created in 1955, and that Elizabeth Catlett was creating work that focused on racial injustice, what message is she trying to tell us? Years later, she created a very similar sculpture, but added a large gun crosshair to the front of the face, seen here. What do you think of this addition? A crosshair like this can be seen if you look through the sight of a gun and are aiming to shoot. Let's compare and contrast this sculpture to the one at the High Museum. What is the artist's message or intent of this sculpture? And do you think it's achieved in the later version? What do you see that makes you say that? Let's look at another artist who creates work about racial injustice. This work of art is about 8 feet tall and 10 feet long. It's made of mirrors that have been fractured and broken and includes spatters of black paint, wax, and soap on top of the mirrors. Let's meet the artist. His name is Rashid Johnson, and he was born in Chicago in 1977. The title of this work is Rumble. It refers to the 1974 boxing match between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, known as the Rumble in the Jungle. This match took place in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, when Black nationalism was becoming increasingly popular in the United States. In this fight, Muhammad Ali knocked out George Foreman, although George Foreman was younger and expected to win the fight. In Rashid Johnson's words, "One moment, everyone was wearing dashikis and looking for their African roots. Suddenly, they were listening to hip-hop and watching BET. I'm interested in exploring the seismic change, looking into the space between things that came before and after. For me, the undefined in-between space is where it gets interesting. What do you think Rashid Johnson is trying to tell us through this work of art? And that quote. Why do you think he used glass, paint, wax, and soap to create his work? Let's look at another artist who used mirrors to tell the story of a historic sports event that is also connected to race and equality. In this sculpture, we see the outline of a man with his arm raised and his fists clenched. The front of the sculpture is polished stainless steel and is mirrored. The back of the sculpture is a cast of Tommie Smith, a famous track and field athlete who won the 200-meter race in the 1968 Mexico City Summer Olympics. Tommie Smith and the second-place runner, John Carlos, rose their fists high during the award ceremony. In addition, they both wore black gloves and black socks with no shoes, all in silent protest of civil and human rights in the United States and worldwide. They also wore beads to protest lynchings and badges that supported the Olympic Project for Human Rights. This was an organization aimed to protest racial injustice and racism in the United States, in South Africa, and in sports. The third place winner, Peter Norman, also wore a badge during the ceremony. The artist, Glenn Kino, decided to create this sculpture in 2018 to honor Tommie Smith. When you walk up to the sculpture, you can see yourself reflected in it. Why would Glenn Kino have created the sculpture to have a mirrored surface? What message is he trying to tell us? How is this sculpture similar to and different from Rashid Johnson's Rumble? The title of this work is Invisible Man. Salute. What do you think the title means? Let's shift gears and look at an artist who also uses symbolism to create his work, but who created work in a very different way from Glenn Kino and Rashid Johnson. Jean-Michel Basquiat was born in 1960 in New York City. He began his career as a graffiti artist. His work is abstract, bold, and powerful, and includes references to contemporary culture and art history. In this painting, we see images of the Sacred Heart, a Catholic symbol of pain and suffering, symbolizing personal anguish and the artist's Haitian heritage. Basquiat continually painted such emblems in different combinations as if they were phrases of a personal language, like a visual diary. What other symbols do you notice in this painting? Basquiat's work was deeply personal, and many times he left the interpretation up to the viewer. What message is he trying to tell us? Do you keep a visual journal? If you were to create a portrait of yourself, what symbols would you include and why? Let's look at one more work of art that celebrates and honors the Black experience in the United States. Created in 2018, the same year as Glenn Kino's Invisible Man, Mickalene Thomas's photograph, Les Trois Femmes Deux, shows three women reclining among flowers and plants surrounded by colorful patterns, wallpaper, and textures. Let's meet the artist. Born in New Jersey in 1971, Mickalene Thomas creates work that empowers and celebrates women, especially Black and African American women. In Les Trois Femmes Deux, we see just that. Three women look at the viewer with a sense of calm empowerment. Thomas created a series of work based on this theme. She used Edouard Manet's Lunch on the Grass from 1862 and 1863 as a source of inspiration. Thomas replaced the white men and women in the painting with three strong and powerful Black women. Of this work, she says, "It was meant as a statement about the impact and empowerment of all women. She even included her partner, Raquel Cheverman, in this photograph to show her personal connection to the subject matter. What message do you believe Mickalene Thomas is telling us with this photograph? If you were to pick a famous work of art and reimagine it, what work would you choose and why? Now it's your turn. Pick any work of art, ancient or contemporary, and reimagine it. Use objects from around your house or your friends or family as inspiration to recreate the work of art. What would you change and why? If you could write a brief statement of your work so people could better understand your intent, what would you write? Share your works of art with the High Museum on social media with the tag High Museum at Home. Thank you for joining us on this virtual tour of the High's collection while we celebrate Black, African, and African American art and artists.